now we're talking about guiding lights, the people who show us the way in life. What is the problem that we experience? Why is it that we sometimes feel a difficulty with trusting people who are in the role of a guide? People who are meant to actually show us these deeper truths. Why is it that we have sometimes a reluctance or our heart closed to receiving that assistance that sometimes we know that we need? And one answer to this is that we can be led to misguided endeavors. Let's see. Yeah. So this is one of the reasons that we need guidance. We may have a good intention when we set out to do something. But when we don't have that guidance, when we don't have that tutelage, sometimes the result is very much averse. We see so much in the world today that those who don't have these figures in their lives, these sometimes are misled, misdirected. They'll feel very much vacant in their lives. And, to echo this core idea of like looking for love in all of the wrong places, right? Something that we're trying to seek, that nourishment of exchange, that nourishment of affection. But sometimes when we're not taught how to do it, we never develop that skill. We never develop that skill. For example, when a child is growing up, the parents are usually that first guide. And the Gita actually speaks about how the parents are generally those first guru, which just means teacher. They're the first teachers in life. They teach us everything from how to go to the bathroom to how to do our math. At least they help us with our homework, ideally. How to behave, how to speak in public, how to deal in so many different ways like this. How to communicate our needs. But when that guide isn't there, I'm actually remembering there was a TED Talk that showed during those first 5 years of life, 1 to 5 years old, if they don't get that reciprocation, that love and affection from the parents, it deeply affects them. And they even showed a study where the parent was playing with the child and the child is calling out really for affection, for love, for guidance, for attention. But in the experiments, they had the adult just busy on an iPad. And it showed right in front of us the response, how much inner turmoil that was creating for the child. And they started crying and trying to find out new ways to try to gain that attention. In general, we call that acting out. Right? And so if that habit kind of percolates until older age, then they start acting out in greater and greater ways, causing so much turmoil. Right? But then they also showed the other half where they put the iPad aside and give the attention, and that guidance, that reciprocity showed how the child was able to grow in a safe and loving environment. And so when we don't have these different guides, we can end up actually hurting ourselves, And this is true for any field, right? Like if I want to take up craftsmanship or something, and I'm starting working with table saws and all kinds of heavy tools, if I don't have somebody guiding me, I'm probably not going to come back in a week with all of my fingers attached to my hands. So in these simple ideas, we can understand how crucial it is to have a teacher in every field. Sometimes we like to believe, and sometimes it's true, we can learn to a certain extent on our own. But how much further we can go when we have a guide. Just actually earlier today, we were having a jam session with a friend, and we had one of the guitars in the building. And I remember growing up, and I wanted a guitar so badly. I was asking, it was my number one thing on the Christmas list. I was like, I want a guitar. You know, and my aunt was so kind and they got it for me, and I had it, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be like, you know, these like musicians. I'll be like, you know, Sting and the Police and everything. And as soon as I picked it up, I was like, this is hard. This hurts my fingers. I don't know if I'm gonna do this anymore. And as soon as I felt like I came into that difficulty, I ended up giving it up. And, you know, every time I kind of tried to pick it up, even as I grew older, you know, I would reach this point and I wouldn't be able to go beyond it because there would be some difficulty in like trying to learn how to play this certain chord or something. And then literally like 25 years later now, well, I guess not 25 years later, maybe like 20, 15 years later, my friend who is like an expert, you know, instrumentalist, I was like, how do you play this chord? And he was like, oh yeah, you can actually just reach your thumb across and mute this one string so that you can play this other chords more nicely. And I was like, I've been waiting for someone to tell me that for 18 years. Like, and so quickly, you know, if I had gotten that guidance earlier, who knows at what stage I'd be now. I could be performing at Madison Square Garden. But things happen for a reason. So like this, how important and how big of a change it can be just to have some kind of guide in our lives. Now, if we're talking about one of the reasons that we don't seek that guidance, it can often come from a place of mistrust. Often we see in this world that those who were expecting to receive that guidance, we're kind of reiterating, echoing this, they had their trust broken. They had their faith in that person broken. And when that breaks in such a way that really affects the core of our heart, it makes it difficult for us then to open up to someone new. We much rather do it ourselves. Try to figure it out ourselves. Because in that way, it's this, you know, protective aspect, you know. It's the mind trying to say that if you do it this way, you know, escape the risk of being hurt. The mind is geared to do this for so many reasons, to protect us, you know, even when we're out in, you know, the jungles, if a tiger shows up, the brain's geared to like, okay, that's dangerous, let's not get hurt, let's stay away from that. Snake's bad, spider's bad, tiger's bad. You know, ice cream man, it's probably good. Unless he feeds me too many, then they're probably bad, so. Like this, it's a protective mechanism. But if we let the mechanism override and take full control, then we miss out on so many growing opportunities. And so first we have to be aware of why we don't want to receive that guidance. And when we start doing that introspection, we can come to realize that it's not that I don't want guidance. You know, and right now we're talking about anything in general, but we'll get to more specific about spiritual life. It's not that we don't want guidance, it's just we may have mistrust. You know, and if I've already dipped my toe in spiritual life, especially in spiritual topics, so many times we see that those figures who were supposed to exemplify, who were supposed to guide us, who were supposed to be the beacons of hope in our lives, when they break our trust, it can be so much more difficult, if at all, to reopen that again to someone else. So again, it's not that we don't want the guidance. It's actually our nature to seek it. When we get lost driving, we ask someone for direction. You know, that these days ChatGPT and Google Maps are more readily available than the person on the side of the road, and a lot more trustworthy, I suppose. But it is our nature when we don't know something, we inquire about it. But yeah, it's not that we don't want guidance, it's that we want the best guidance. We want to be able to trust them. And that trust sometimes is very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very revealing. It's very vulnerable. Very vulnerable. It's like, okay, if I'm trusting you with 2 cents, okay, like I don't have to have deep trust in you. It's like, all right, like whether he returns it, whether it's not, 2 cents, who cares? I trust you with my car. Okay, I might need to trust you a little bit more. Don't return it with any scratches. Don't break anything. Okay, I trust you a little bit more. I trust you with my child. Okay, now I'm really trusting you. I'm really putting my heart in your hands. And so what to speak about when we're trusting people with our life, with our soul? This requires a high level of trust, and it's not that we don't want to do that. It's actually in our nature. When we're wanting to answer these questions of the meaning of life, the goal of life, how to be happy, purpose, we're inherently seeking these things out, but we need to know that we can trust them. So one of the reasons why we don't seek it out is because we don't fully have that trust built up yet. And I think that's why my teacher, so many of my teachers, and one of which is Radhanath Swami, is such a big impact in my life. I feel like I'm putting so much weight in their character, so much trust and faith in their person, because of how much of my life I'm investing in what they're, propagating, so to say, and what they're teaching, and the conclusions that they're speaking. And they win that trust by their actions, just how they carry themselves. And so, by that gradual building of trust, I'm able to accept that guidance. And I've experienced practically that to the degree that I accept that guidance, my life changes for the better. So it's like a cycle like this. It's very much of a relationship. And so we really have to, within ourselves, develop that trust and seek out its importance, understand its importance for uplifting our lives, to have someone like this in our lives. And to understand that to have this in my life is what's best for me, but let me not trust blindly. Let me go through the necessary kind of, certification thing, let me, see like what's their spiritual credentials, when we go to a shop, or let's say better yet, a medical clinic, first thing first, you look for the degree, the certificate, something that says this person has gone through such and such university under such and such teachers. They are an authorized teacher. They are skilled enough to uplift you. Because sometimes when we don't do that background check and we trust someone and they break that trust, then it makes it very unpleasant, very much unlikely to open ourselves again. So when we go through those proper steps of verifying, of verification, then at least they win our trust a little bit. And from that seed, it can sprout to something much greater. So that kind of goes into the solution of seeking out that guiding light. So the problem is that our endeavors may be misguided without proper tutelage. And we see that the reason for that is that we may have mistrust. Then ultimately that solution is finding the one who is worthy of our trust. Not that I'm doing this craftsmanship and I keep hurting myself. I recognize, okay, that's not going to work. Or that I go to an unqualified craftsman who will scam me, teach me incorrectly. Oh gosh, now I'm having a memory just kind of flood into my mind. I flash back to being in college and being a graphic design major. I had mostly really good, I hope he doesn't see this online. Mostly really good graphic design teachers, but there was one teacher where I was just feeling like, why are we watching movies? We're supposed to be like doing graphic design work here. Right, so we need that authorized teacher. So it's not that I go on doing it on my own, because there's so much more I could learn. So many difficulties I could avoid, so much time I could avoid losing. And it's not that we go to the unqualified teacher who could scam us, cheat us, misguide us. It's just that we really have to take the time to seek out the true guides who can really connect us with our higher purpose. And that does take a lot of trust because, sometimes they're promising something that we can't see. Sometimes they see the value in us that we can't see in ourselves. And we see that, even in the secular world. For some reason, Karate Kid is really coming into my mind again and again. It's like, he's like, I can't do it. I don't know what you see in me. He's like, if you follow this, if you follow my guidance, you can win. You can be the champion, And so like this, when we've mentioned so many guides in our lives who have uplifted us in so many different ways. Where would we be without them? Thinking of my mother, like, where would I be without that person to turn to? That emotional support, the mental support, intellectual support, financial support. She's my mother. That's there too. These guides who really uplift us. I fully would not be able to be here now without their help. And so in the spirit of gratitude, I want to live to be a reflection of their life, a reflection of their light, so that now I can share that also with others. And this is the beauty of love and reciprocation, is that we do open ourselves to receive that light from the qualified persons, and then we reciprocate by offering that same guidance to others, however that may be, whatever that might look like. If you're a craftsman, then sharing the fruit of being taught by sharing your work with the world. If you're some kind of instructor, then giving back, instructing others. And what to speak about spiritual life. If you hear something nice on Jay Shetty, tell us about it. And similarly, here at the Bhakti Center, we're so much focused on developing love within our heart. Bhakti means love. It's the art of love. And we find that love is ultimately the greatest satisfaction for the soul, for the self. And so what better thing can we do than to receive the pure love in our hearts? What better thing can we do than to offer that same love to others as they're ready to accept it? As they're ready to accept it. We may have all experienced when it's not a perfect love and how it can hurt so deeply. And again, that might block us off from trusting. But when we save a little pocket of our heart, open up the door a little bit to that inner desire that we've always wanted to love and to be loved. And we find out how to grow that seed of love from those who have it, from those who live it, from those who teach it. We cannot conceive of the beautiful transformation that will manifest as a result of that. So this is kind of the challenge, to seek out that guiding light. Like in the Kirtan, we're kind of following the North Star in the Arabian desert. Life is like that. Sometimes we don't know what's going to happen. But if we are sincerely asking within our hearts where to find that light, where to find that guidance, how to attain that happiness, and how to share it with others, we absolutely will attract that into our lives and be given opportunity after opportunity to imbibe it, relish it, and to share it. So, those are a few thoughts. Oh yeah, and transcendence. So this also applies to our spiritual guide. Our spiritual guide. Now, we mentioned, 2 cents, a car, your child, your soul. It said in the Bhagavad Gita, Nahanyate hanyamane sharire, that the soul is eternal. It cannot be destroyed. And so if we start from the basis that consciousness is an energy, and even modern science is discovering that energy cannot be created or destroyed, and if energy cannot be created, then it means it has no beginning, no point of creation. If it cannot be destroyed, so it means that there's no point in which it will cease to be. There's no ending. And if there is something that has no end and no beginning, that could also be described as eternal. And so consciousness is an energy. And thus, the conscious soul is said to be eternal. And so who we place that eternal soul in the guidance of is of extreme importance. And so if we go through this whole formula again, that we don't want to not have any guidance, because where would we end up? Somehow we ended up in the darkness of an Arabian desert. I don't know how we got there. We also don't want to take misguidance because that could also get us into a wide range of predicaments. But we want to find the guide who can truly help us. It's the same for spiritual life. And so, that all starts with a sincere desire in our heart. Production of Guru, the one who encourages us to seek that out. It all starts with that, first, that seed of desire to receive that guidance, to open that potential, to receive that love. And then next, to take shelter of that person. So this verse is inspired from Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, text 34. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashrina sevaya upadekshanti te gyanam gyaninas tattvadarshanaha. So this is the Sanskrit of the Bhagavad Gita. And I translate it as thus: just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual guide. Inquire from them humbly and reciprocate with them. The realized souls can guide you because they have seen the truth. Right? So quickly we can break that down. Anything that we're trying to learn how to be happy, how to love more deeply. And so the spiritual guide is said to be someone who has experienced that, has mastered that, who can give that guidance. We have to inquire from them humbly, which just means, we're not challenging them, we're not being disrespectful. It's just really sincerely, what is the answer to these questions? How can I be uplifted? Can you please guide me? This simple humility. And reciprocating with them. Every relationship, there is reciprocity that develops love itself. And so even reciprocating with the teacher, even by just applying their instructions, is our offering back unto these teachers. And the realized souls, these people who have actually learned it, who have actually lived it, they can guide because they have seen the truth. Otherwise, they've tasted it, they experienced it, they've imbibed it. It's not just words for them. It shows through in their life, in their character. Acharya or a teacher is said to be one who studies it, who teaches it, and who lives it. In our words, they talk the talk and they walk the walk. Big part. So many talking can be done, but walking the walk. This is how we can develop trust. This is how we can kind of test to see if the spiritual guide is true. And then also by practical experience of seeing how applying their guidance has uplifted our life. So, that's a little note on transcendence. I want to now take some time to open it up for questions. Maybe have some little discussion on guides, and especially spiritual guides. So are there any questions or comments?
So you mentioned sometimes about building trust in teachers, and sometimes you can get advice from someone who you think you really believe in, and sometimes they offer their best opinion, but it doesn't work out. So I want you to talk a little bit, if you could explain how do you not lose complete faith in them, but also continue to believe their opinion, even though sometimes people are human, they don't know, and they can't give you the best advice.
Yes, really good question. Really good question. There's multiple ways to answer that. What's coming to me now is to have a network of teachers. Like I mentioned the graphic design example. I had one teacher where I was questioning and it was making me doubt, but I had 4 or 5 other teachers who were exemplary, and they really helped me grow. And so I could kind of pollinate the different guidance and see what really worked for myself. Another aspect is the relationship, how close we are with each other, how much we know each other. We've only met once, and they're trying to guide me in a very specific example from far away. It might not connect. So we allow some space for that. But also, it depends on the specifics. It helps us kind of temper our expectation of the teacher by giving room for multiple tests. So we don't kind of just go, all right, I got one answer and it worked, I'll give you my life. You know, it's like, okay, let's build up, let's build a relationship gradually. And so in that, there's room for the successes and for the failures also. So like this. Those are a few thoughts. Yeah, how's that resonate? Good? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Earlier you mentioned about not knowing, maybe possibly learning about something we don't have yet access to, like say something in spirituality. And in the same way we might not have access to the heart of the teacher. We don't know what's going on in their heart. We don't know what's their motivation. And so we have old book called Upadeshamrita by Rupa Goswami, written about 450 years ago. And he talks about the qualification of a world-class guru, teacher. There are many different teachers, but this is like the high-level teacher. And he talks about this external things that you can see. They're controlled in their anger. They're controlled in their eating, their mind. They're basically the things that you can see. You can see that the person's not so much controlled by the energies of this world. It's like, wait, this one is, I don't know what's in their heart, but at least there's some spiritual progress to the point that this person has tasted something to the point where they're not controlled by this external things. I just want to share.
Yeah, it's a very great point. There are some external things that help us kind of identify the qualifications of especially a spiritual teacher. But yeah, also you mentioned the Uttama Adhikari. Some of these things are a very internal thing, and we can't always see that. But it does remind me, like, for one of my primary teachers, one of the ways I developed trust in them was actually not through them directly. It was seeing the quality of people who were under his tutelage. I saw so many of his students, and just the way they carried themselves with high principle, high character, high quality, such spiritual strength that seemed to just emanate off of them. And it was so interesting to me because this was over like a period of months where I would see like, okay, there's this person and 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 this person. And they all have this similar quality of energy. Who is it that they're taking guidance from, you know? Like when any, master artist, whether it's an instrument or a sport or whoever, they have this guide. One of my other teachers in Long Beach, he was just saying, when there's like a boxing ring, as soon as that person does the last punch and like they win, the first thing they go is to thank their coach, So like this, I'm seeing all of these people are taking spiritual coaching, so to say. And I'm like, who's your spiritual coach? And they're like, it's this person, this Radhanath Swami. And I was like, wow, okay. Like, there must be something about this person because the product of their teaching is so clean across so many of their students. So that was the first way that I developed trust. And then gradually hearing their teaching, hearing their classes, applying it, developing a relationship. So I think that's the biggest thing, is when there's a relationship, there's also room for successes and failures. But really just kind of testing and seeing like the qualities of this person, the quality of the people around them, and things like this, and how we can gradually develop that trust and faith.
Yeah. I wanted to comment on ourselves, like being open to learning. So I noticed for me, somebody had mentioned Eckhart Tolle. So I've read a couple of his books and I really liked what he has to say. And then when I heard him talk, or like audio, I couldn't absorb it because of his style. And equally I had the opposite, but I love like his writing, just his style, his voice, his interviews. I have like a blockade. So when I read his stuff, I can absorb it. When I hear him, I can't. And then like a bunch of years ago, I was in India in Leh Ladakh, and I saw His Holiness Dalai Lama. Like imagine in the middle of a mountaintop, there's like hundreds of people and he's giving a sermon. But it was all in Ladakhi and Tibetan, which I don't speak either of them. But sitting for 3 hours, you just absorb everything that he's saying just by his laughter and his playfulness. And so I just wanted to comment on, like in one, it was just the energy of the person, and the other is the words of the person, and there's many more examples. But there's like, if there's barriers within yourself or like things that you gravitate towards, maybe take the style, then you can learn something from everyone. So.
Yes, that's another great point. If we can bring ourselves to the level of being able to learn from everyone, learn from everything, and also other very nice points about like how they carry themselves, the energy they give off, and their teachings. And yeah, if we can bring ourselves up to a level of consciousness, then even the person who might be, shouting at us down the street, we can be like, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this person right now? Yes, Leon?
I think something that helps is like if I try out their teaching, and and it works for me, and what they say makes sense, right? So, like with Eckhart Tolle, like when I was listening to him, I actually felt like much more present. Like you can feel like giving off that energy, and he's helping guide you to be able to observe your thoughts, and you feel a lot more present when he's talking about my anxiety went down. So when you like put things in practice, you do like a trial period, and it's like it's working for you. I think that's like a good sign.
Brilliant. Yeah, and that's how we develop that trust, right? Through that practical application and gradual growth. That's how I also very much experienced my development in this spiritual practice. Just gradually applying Maha Mantra meditation, 15 minutes in the morning, just giving it the time and space to grow. When you plant a seed, you have to give it the time to grow to see what the product is going to be. But then starting to see the results, anxiety reducing, productivity increasing, quality of life raising, and really seeing like, wow, okay, this product works. This product works, so let me hear what else they have to say, And also, like reading their different works. The first book I read was The Science of Self-Realization. I remember just going like, wow, like I thought this was true, and I felt like this, and so many things were resonating, and so it really inspired to continue to go forward through inspiration. Not feeling that we should or have to. It's not an artificial imposition. Sometimes we do have to push ourselves, but still really allowing for that time and that space to be inspired and to follow that inspiration. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah. Well, unless there are any other questions? Cool. In that case, I will end with mentioning this Maha Mantra. One of the greatest guiding lights in my life and many others is the spiritual sound vibration itself, which is said to be non-different, actually, than the Adi Guru, or the original guide, the original consciousness. So if we understand that we are conscious and that everything has a source, it would make sense that that source is also conscious. And that source is referred to by so many different names, and whichever name we call, that's very nice. Here in the Maha Mantra there are three. The Hare, referring to the divine feminine, Krishna, the divine masculine, and Rama, which means the reservoir of pleasure. So
Rama means what?
Reservoir of pleasure.
Oh,
Yes. And so when we call to these different names, my personal experience of this, we start feeling a connection with the internal guide. How's that verse go? Sarveshacha ham hridisthani visto matasmitya jnanam apohanam cha vedaisha saver eva aham eva vedyo vedantakrit vedavid eva cha ham. I gotta brush up on my Sanskrit.
what does it mean?
Yes. Good question. So, in this, it is said, Krishna, or the original consciousness, Krishna means all attracted, so he's saying that I am in the heart of everyone. That divine source is in the heart of everyone. And from them comes knowledge, remembrance, and, well, let's say it's remembrance, so if I forget it, then I can blame him for it. And forgetfulness. Here we go. Proof. So yeah, knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So like this, when we connect, it's just a direct calling to that source, to that guide, that inner guide. So many cultures have different words, the Paramatma, or the superego, or the conscience. You ever heard that skit where it's like, hey Joe, I'm your conscience, and what you did was bad, so you feel bad. you know. So it's that internal guide, the internal conscience. And so I like whenever I get a smile to that one. So these names directly call upon this guide, and there's so many different names and so many different connections and conceptions. But this is one way where we can call out to that guide. You know, so many different ways we can refer to it: universal, you know, law of attraction, or spiritual sound vibration, or the original consciousness. Krishna just simply means that all-attractive one, who is the source of all qualities. So when we vibrate these names, we can practically experience coming closer to that guide, and we will start to experience how our life starts to transform as a result of calling this original guide. And it's said, and I'll close with this, that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. There's no difference in spiritual life. So with that, I will thank you all very much for coming. I hope you feel inspired to embark on that spiritual journey, whatever and however that may look like. Yeah, that's all I got.